Everything you learned in school was incomplete. This is Ancient Files. Pompeii's last 24 hours. The complete story. August 24th, 79 AD. It is a perfectly normal morning in the Roman city of Pompeii. Merchants are setting up their stalls. Children are playing in the streets. Bakers are pulling fresh bread from their ovens. Families are laughing, arguing, living their lives, completely unaware that in less than 24 hours, every single one of them will be dead. A mountain will erupt with the force of 100,000 atomic bombs. A wave of superheated gas moving at 180 miles per hour will sweep through the city. And an entire civilization, frozen in a single moment of time, will disappear beneath 20 feet of volcanic ash. For 1,700 years, Pompeii was lost, hidden, forgotten, until one day in 1748, workers digging in a field near Naples accidentally broke through the earth and found an entire city waiting underneath, perfectly preserved, frozen exactly as it was on that terrible morning in 79 AD. The food still on the tables, the graffiti still on the walls, the people, frozen forever in their final moments, still lying in the streets where they fell. Today on Ancient Files, we go back to Pompeii's last 24 hours, minute by minute. And what we discover will haunt you long after this video ends. To understand what happened to Pompeii, we first need to understand what it was. In 79 AD, Pompeii was one of the most vibrant, most cosmopolitan cities in the entire Roman Empire. Home to approximately 11,000 people, it was a prosperous trading hub located on the Bay of Naples in southern Italy, blessed with fertile volcanic soil, a busy harbor, and a warm Mediterranean climate. Pompeii had everything a Roman city could want: magnificent temples, a large amphitheater that could hold 20,000 spectators, luxurious bathhouses, restaurants, bars, and brothels lining its stone-paved streets. It even had the world's first known fast food restaurants, stone counters with built-in pots where hot food was served to customers in the street, exactly like a modern food stall. And looming over all of it, Mount Vesuvius, a massive, beautiful volcano rising 4,200 feet above the Bay of Naples. The people of Pompeii knew it was a volcano, but Vesuvius had not erupted in over 1,800 years. To the Romans living in its shadow, it was simply a mountain, a beautiful, fertile mountain whose rich volcanic soil grew the best grapes in Italy. They had no idea they were living on a time bomb, and the warning signs, when they finally came, were so subtle, so easily explained away, that almost nobody understood what they meant until it was far too late. The warning signs began weeks before the eruption. Small earthquakes had been rattling the region for days. Wells and springs were drying up mysteriously, because underground, the rising magma was absorbing the groundwater. Animals were behaving strangely. Birds stopped singing. Dogs refused to eat. Farm animals broke free from their enclosures and fled. But Romans in the 1st century had no science of volcanology. They had no way of knowing what these signs meant. The earthquakes were common in the region. The dry wells could be explained by summer heat. The strange animal behavior, superstition perhaps. And so life in Pompeii continued normally, right up until the very last moment. Then at approximately 1 p.m. on August 24th, 79 AD, Vesuvius exploded. The eruption column shot 21 miles into the sky in less than 30 minutes, higher than most modern aircraft fly. The sound of the explosion was heard hundreds of miles away. The sky turned black in the middle of the afternoon, and a rain of small rocks and volcanic ash began falling on Pompeii like a deadly gray snowstorm. In the first hours, many people escaped. Those who fled immediately,
who grabbed their children and ran toward the harbor and the roads leading out of the city. Many of them survived. We know this because archaeologists have found groups of skeletons on the roads leading away from Pompeii, weighed down by the valuables they refused to leave behind, who ran out of time. But thousands stayed. Some because they were too frightened to move, some because they were waiting for family members, some because they genuinely believed the worst was over, and some, tragically, because they went back inside their homes to protect their valuables from looters, not realizing that the real danger had not yet arrived.
And then came the pyroclastic surge. This is what truly killed Pompeii, and it is one of the most terrifying natural phenomena on Earth. At approximately 6 a.m. on August 25th, 17 hours after the eruption began, the eruption column collapsed, and when it did, it released a pyroclastic surge, a superheated avalanche of gas, ash, and rock, moving at up to 180 miles per hour at temperatures between 300 and 700 degrees Celsius. It hit Pompeii in seconds. There was no escape, no warning, no time to run. Every person still in the city died almost instantly, not from burns, as was long believed, but from thermal shock. The extreme heat caused their brain fluid to vaporize and their skulls to literally explode. Death was instantaneous. They felt nothing. Within minutes, Pompeii was buried under 20 feet of ash and pumice. The city that had been alive and breathing just hours before simply ceased to exist, erased from the surface of the earth as completely as if it had never been there at all. Now here is one of the most haunting facts about Pompeii. The famous plaster casts of Pompeii's victims, those heartbreaking frozen figures that have become iconic images of the ancient world, are not plaster statues. They are the actual void spaces left in the ash by decomposed human bodies. When archaeologists discovered these cavities in the 1860s, they pumped liquid plaster into them and revealed the exact posture, facial expression, and final moment of real human beings who died 2,000 years ago. A mother shielding her child, a man covering his face, a dog chained to a post, unable to flee. These are not art. They are the most intimate archaeological record of human death ever discovered. But Pompeii's story does not end with its destruction. It continues with its rediscovery, and with everything we have learned from it. When excavations began in earnest in the 18th and 19th centuries, archaeologists found something extraordinary. Pompeii was not just a city frozen in time. It was a window into the everyday life of the ancient Roman world, more detailed, more intimate, and more revealing than any written historical record. They found political campaign graffiti on the walls, Romans endorsing candidates for local elections, exactly like modern political posters. They found love poems and crude jokes scratched into stone. They found evidence of a deeply unequal society, magnificent villas with mosaic floors and private gardens, right next door to cramped single-room apartments where entire families lived in poverty. They found a city with a surprisingly modern feel. Pompeii had stepping stones across its streets, because the streets doubled as open sewers, and Romans needed to cross without getting their feet wet. It had traffic management systems, stone barriers to prevent carts from entering certain streets. It had fast food restaurants, wine bars, and even what appears to be the world's oldest known commercial laundry service. And excavations at Pompeii are still ongoing today. In 2019, just a few years ago, archaeologists discovered a remarkably preserved Roman fast food counter with traces of food still inside the pots after 2,000 years. In 2021, they found the perfectly preserved remains of two men, believed to be a wealthy man and his slave, who died together in a basement, their bodies so well preserved that researchers could identify what they had eaten for their last meal. Today, Pompeii is one of the most visited archaeological sites on Earth, welcoming over 3.5 million visitors every year. But it faces a new threat. The same volcanic soil that preserved it for 2,000 years is now being destabilized by tourism, climate change, and the weight of millions of footsteps. Walls are collapsing. Mosaics are fading. The city that survived a volcanic eruption may ultimately be destroyed by the very attention that its survival attracted. There is also the question of what remains undiscovered. Archaeologists estimate that approximately 1/3 of Pompeii has never been excavated. Beneath the soil of that unexcavated section could be treasures, secrets, and stories that would rewrite our understanding of the ancient world. Every year, new technology, ground-penetrating radar, LiDAR scanning, DNA analysis, reveals new details about the people who lived and died there. Pompeii is not just an archaeological site. It is the most complete snapshot of a single moment in human history ever preserved. A city frozen at 6 a.m. on August 25th, 79 AD, with its food still on the tables, its graffiti still on the walls, and its people still telling us their stories 2,000 years after the mountain took everything else away. The next time you feel like your problems are overwhelming, remember Pompeii. Remember that somewhere beneath the earth in southern Italy, there are people who had no idea their world was about to end. Who woke up that morning, made their breakfast, argued with their neighbors, fell in love, made plans for tomorrow, and never got to see it. Their city is gone, but their stories remain. And as long as we keep telling them, they are never truly lost. What part of Pompeii's story shocked you the most? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Subscribe to Ancient Files for a new documentary every week. This is Ancient Files, and we are just getting started.